Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you how to make this adorable snowman magnet. Lion Brand was kind enough to send me the DIY yarn for all of the magnets in this crochet along. For the snowman I'll be using mostly white, royal blue and sky blue for the hat, and just a tiny bit of orange and black for the facial embroidery. Since we're using so little of the orange and black, it's totally okay to substitute orange and black embroidery thread instead of the yarn. You'll also need a glue gun and some glue. I'm using this mini hot glue gun that Zyron sent me to use for this crochet along. Finally, you'll need a magnet that fits inside your snowman. This one's about 1 inch across, which is pretty much the biggest you're going to want, but you do want to make sure it's very thin so that it doesn't puff up your snowman too much. Let's get started with the back circle. Make a magic loop or chain 2, and then work 6 single crochet into that magic loop or into your second chain from your hook. Now you can close your magic loop if you made one, and then join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. For round 2, we're going to increase in each stitch. So we're going to work 2 stitches in each stitch. But rather than put them both in exactly the same spot, which can open up a hole, I'm going to show you a slightly more invisible increase. Chain 1 to get up to the height, and instead of putting your first stitch under both loops like normal, we're going to put it under the back loop only. Now for your second stitch, put that under both loops like normal. Let's see that again. Back loop only, and then both loops. So we still have 2 stitches in each stitch, but they're not in exactly the same spot, so it gives us a slightly more invisible increase. So I'm going to do that in each stitch all the way around, back loop only, and then both loops. Okay, that's taken me from 6 stitches to 12, and this little bit right here, that is our slip stitch from the previous row, so we don't work into that. We just slip stitch right into the first stitch of this round. And that's round 2. Now for round 3, we're going to alternate between making increases and regular stitches, and that's going to take us from 12 to 18 stitches. So chain 1, increase in the first stitch, so back loop only, and then both loops, and then a regular stitch, just 1 stitch in the next stitch. Okay, increase, and don't increase. Increase, and don't increase. And we'll keep doing that all the way around. That has brought us to 18 stitches. Join with a slip stitch, and we're on to round 4. On round 4, we're going to alternate increase and then 2 stitches that are just regular. So it'll be increase, regular stitch, increase, single crochet, single crochet. So chain 1 to get up to height, and then increase in the first stitch, and then single crochet, single crochet. Increase, single crochet, single crochet. And we keep doing that all the way around. That's taken us from 18 stitches to 24. We're going to join and then fasten off, leaving a tail long enough to sew all the way around, which should be maybe about 12 to 18 inches. Now at this point, our circle should measure about 2 1/4 inches in diameter all the way across. So I'm right on. We'll add a little bit of bulk when we sew it together, so that'll take us to about 2 1/2 inches when we're done. Now let's weave in the starting tail, and then we can glue on the magnet. Remember, don't weave in the long tail. You're going to need that for sewing later. For the magnet, just put a big bead of glue all the way around your magnet, and then stick it down into the center on the wrong side of the back circle. It just takes a second and then it's attached. The front circle is exactly the same as the back circle, so I've gone ahead and done that, except you don't leave a very long tail because you already have a long tail on the back circle to sew with. So now we're going to weave in these ends and then we'll start on the face. I've woven in the ends and also attached a tail of black yarn to embroider the face. When I look at my front, I can see the seam from those slip stitches right here. I want to make sure that that's going to go under the hat when I put the hat on. So the hat's going to go right here. I want to make sure my eyes come below that. So I'm going to put the eyes right here on either side of the center. Like here's the center. I'm going to go maybe one stitch up and put the eyes right here. So let's bring the needle up here for the very first eye. Now you can use small stitches or you can use French knots, whichever one you prefer. I'm going to try a French knot. These are the bane of my existence. I'm not very good at them. But let's give it a shot. So we line the needle up as though it's coming up through the fabric. And that's where I always screw up. You can't do a French knot like this, okay? It has to be going the opposite way. So we wrap it this way, and I'm just going to do 3 wraps. And then when we go back down, it twists and it forms a knot. So we're going to go down right close to where we came up, but not exactly where we came up. We need a couple of threads in there to hold it in place. Hold this end and pull straight through the French knot. And if you did it right, there we go, you get a nice little charcoal eye. So now let's do that for the other eye. So I've pulled up the yarn where I want it. I point my needle as though it's going up, wrap around 3 times, and back down close to where I was, but not quite in exactly the same spot. There. Whoops. And this is what always happens to me with French knots. There we go. Okay, so there are our 2 eyes. Now let's do the mouth. I'm going to come down straight between my 2 eyes, so right in line here, and put a dot right there. So I'm coming up here. Okay. And this time I'm just going to do 2 wraps because I want smaller little knots, and come down right next to where I came up. Okay, that's the center of my mouth. Now I'm going to go right next to it. I want it pretty close, okay? So I'm coming up right next to that to do the next one. My French knots are always a little messy. They're not my favorite stitch, but that's okay because coal is not perfectly circular, right? And I'm going to show you a little trick to fix these later. Now up really close, and 2 wraps, and back down here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, there's the mouth. Now if you have a French knot that's a little wonky like this, what you can do is you can come up underneath it, so right through the knot, okay? And then tack it down where you want it to be. Now this will make it a little bit puffier, so you don't want to do this too much, but that can help to tame an unruly French knot. I'm going to do that to this one as well. Come up under it and then tack it down right there. And now I have a mouth that I'm a lot happier with. So now it's time to put on the nose. I've woven in the black yarn, attached a bit of orange in the center, and now let's make a nose. For the nose, I want a little triangle like a carrot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up down here, okay? And then I'm going to go back down through the center. Now on one side of the nose, I'm going to come up and I'm actually going to split this yarn, okay? But I'm going to come up a little bit higher than I was before. And then I'm going to go down just to the right of the center here. Almost in the same spot. Then I'm going to come up in that same place, splitting that first yarn, okay? And I'm going to go down just to the left of the center, but almost in the same spot. Okay, that's a nice little carrot nose. I'm happy with that. And then I can weave in this tail, and the face is done. Let's move on to the hat. Chain 3. Now in the second chain from the hook, work 2 single crochets. And in the next chain, work 2 single crochets. So now we have 4 single crochets for our first row. Chain 1 and turn, and we're going to increase on the first and last single crochet. So increase, and it's that same front loop and then both loops that we've been doing. Single crochet in the next 2, and then increase in the last one. And that is 2 increases, so that takes us from 4 to 6. Now we're going to do the same thing again to go up to 8. So chain 1 and turn, increase in the next stitch, or the first stitch, I mean. Then single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches, and increase in the last stitch. Now we're going to do an edging round, chain 1 and turn, single crochet in each stitch around or across. So that's 8. And now we're going to work 3 single crochet along the side of the rows up to that starting foundation chain. So chain 1 and work 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, up the side. Okay, now we're at the top where we have those 2 starting chains, right? We're going to chain 1 and we're going to single crochet in each of those 2 chains. Now we're going to chain 1 and work 3 single crochet down this side. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we're going to join, but rather than joining with the blue, we're going to switch to the, rather than joining with the sky blue, I mean, we're going to switch to the royal blue. So I stick my hook in to do the slip stitch, and then I join with the blue. I do the slip stitch with the royal blue. Now we're going to put the brim on. So chain 1, and we're just going to single crochet in each of these 8 stitches across. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that's it. Now we're going to fasten off, leaving enough of a tail to sew this on. So just like 3 times that length plus a little bit. And you can fasten off the blue as the sky blue as well. And that is our snowman's hat. So we'll weave in all the tails except for this long blue one, and then we'll come back and put our snowman together. Now let's assemble our magnet. Put the front and back pieces together so that the magnet is inside, the face will show on the front, and the right side of the back will show on the back. We're going to use this long tail to sew the 2 together. For this magnet, I'm going to use a whip stitch along the outside edge. So I just go in from front to back in each pair of stitches, making sure I'm going through both thicknesses here, in each pair of stitches, all the way around the outside edge. I've sewn the front and back together, I wove in the end, and now it's time to attach the hat. Now the beanie sits directly above the eyes, so kind of in line with the top of the eyes there. Do you see that? So find that spot on this side And what we're actually going to do is come through from behind and then up through this second stitch. And what that's going to do is it's going to wrap the first stitch around the edge of our snowman. And I'm going to do another stitch around that same edge just to hold that in place. And then it looks like he's actually wearing the hat rather than it's just flat and sewn on top. So that has positioned our hat. Now we just go through and sew, and you're going to hit the magnet when you come in here. So you're going to have to, you're going to have to go around the magnet, or you're going to have to scoop underneath and come back up like that, which is how I'm doing it. And I'm doing a back stitch, so I'm going to go backwards a little bit and then forwards. Make sure you're holding this edge so that you don't end up scrunching up the hat too much. Okay, and when I get to this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap that first stitch around the back. Actually, I've got 2 stitches there. So let's get that second one. There we go. So I'm going to wrap the first stitch around the back and go through, go down through that stitch and then back up around the side. Well, let's do it in pieces. Down through that first stitch and then back up around the side and up through the second stitch on the hat. There. And that's made our hat wrap around a little bit. Okay, so it looks like an actual hat that the snowman is wearing, and then we can go ahead and weave in our ends. Now let's make a little pom-pom for the top of the hat. With the darker blue, the royal blue, stick one little piece between your fingers like that, okay, so that it hangs out the front and out the back. Now take the blue off of your skein, and we're going to just wrap it around these 2 fingers, maybe 10 times. A little bit more than 10. There we go. I like full pom-poms. And then we're going to cut, well, maybe a couple more. Okay, so about 20 times. Then we're going to cut this yarn, and now you've got the base of a pom-pom here, right? Pull up these 2 yarns that we wrapped around, and you're going to tie a knot. And I like to use a surgeon's knot here, which means I wrap it around an extra time because that holds steady. And we're going to pull this tight, okay? Once you have it tied, you can slip it off your fingers and you can tighten even more, okay? Now tie the other half of the knot. And that's a good solid knot. Okay, now we're going to trim. So hold on to these tails and grab your scissors, and let's very loosely trim the beanie, or trim the pom-pom for now. Just chop off those loops. Okay, get all those loops. There we go. I'm going to make this much, much smaller by the time we're done, but before I do, I want to make sure it's very secure, right? So I'm going to take my needle, thread it through both of these tails, one by one. The first tail I'm going to sew through, forward and backwards a few times, through the very center of the pom-pom to kind of help hold everything together. And I'm going in a couple different directions. And this will create a nice tight knot in the center. And when I can't go anymore, I'll leave that there for my next trimming round. Okay? With this tail, I'm going to sew it onto the hat and then through the pom-pom. So let us find the top of the hat, which is between those 2 single crochets at the top there. Sew that on. See, it's way too big right now, right? And I'm going to come through it again like that. Make sure it's nice and secure. And then back through the pom-pom. And one more time through. Okay, now that's nice and secure. Now I can trim this really tightly, and make sure that you hold it like this so that you don't accidentally trim part of the hat. So trim it really close. It's better to trim little bits at a time and keep going back than to trim too much at once because you can't untrim. And our snowman is done! If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!